All right. Here we go, back again on the other side of the coin. All right, everyone, welcome back to the other side of the coin. Look who I have here. It's Aiden Malik. I mean, I've always wanted to have him in my channel, and finally I've got him here. First of all, Aiden, how you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Brilliant. Look, obviously, probably a little bit too early to do a preview, but being in Sydney, I am on Wednesday at the moment, and the game's on Friday morning. So by the time this sort of starts surfacing into my channel, it should be timely enough that everyone starts seeing the preview, and I'm sure everyone will start doing the previews. And also, everyone who's joined in, thank you so much for joining. And obviously, throughout the session, there'll be more people joining in. So before we were talking about this off air, Aiden, and before we get into the whole preview, I want to get your thoughts on a certain matter that is being quite hot in the timeline in Twitter, especially. Football is probably at its peak in Twitter as opposed to all other social media platform. So I want to get your thoughts on a particular matter, and hope the people that are watching will get a kick out of this as well. Aiden, I've seen since Tuchel's taken over, and you've noticed this as well, that there's a clean slate. There's no fringe players anymore. There's no players that are not going to get a look in. Everyone seems to have the right sort of opportunity. Everyone's getting the right sort of treatment at training. And Tuchel already, we've seen so far, he's given Chilwell an opportunity in the first game against Wolves. Alonso got an opportunity in the second game against Burnley. Jorginho and Kovacic are playing in the pivot. Rudiger is back again, I suppose, in the centre-back position. And he's mentioned, and we've already seen that Billy Gilmour's not been let out. He's staying in the team because he's mentioned that he wants to keep all the players in his squad because he believes that he needs them. There's Champions League matches, there's FA Cup matches, quite a lot of Premier League matches to happen as well. But for some reason, Aiden, in the timeline, there seems to be this stigma where some people still got this residual value from Frank Lampard days where they can't seem to, I suppose, not appreciate. They've got this issue with certain players in the likes of Rudiger or Alonso, Jorginho, whoever else. And as much as they want to understand that it's a new manager and it's clean slate again, but there seems to be a lot of anger inside them, and to a point where it feels like they don't want these players to start. They don't want these players to get an opportunity. What is your thoughts on this particular matter?
So I understand it from the one point where people are like, well, you have a player like Alonso, and you can look at like the West Brom bus incident, whatever walks off, so on and so forth, causes disruption in the team, and you're like, okay, well, this player doesn't help. Chelsea doesn't like Chelsea, big part of Frank Lampard's sacking, but I understand that. And there are specific cases like Alonso, like say what you want about him, and then he kisses the badge this game. It's kind of a joke, like back and forth.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like, what do you value more? Do you like, let's take Jorginho, for example, not Alonso. Like Jorginho didn't play very well under Frank, not a lot. Like it's very obvious he wasn't very good. And then now under Tuchel with Kovacic in the middle, they haven't been fantastic, but they've done decent. Like they're in a decent system that lets them play out right. It's like, if you don't want good performances from Chelsea players, that doesn't really make sense to me. It's like, if these players get another chance, they'll come in, do well, help the team that you support. Why wouldn't you want that, even if they were not the greatest under the previous regime? Like, I don't see why that's such a big issue in the fan base right now. Everyone starts fresh. And now this like meritocracy that everyone asked for, like under the Conte and Sarri eras, where everyone was like, the 11 was always set. Everyone knew exactly what position everyone would play in. Victor Moses right wing back under Conte, you know what I mean? Like there's no breaking that at all. And then Sarri, obviously that rigid 4-3-3, and everyone's like meritocracy, so on and so forth. And now you finally have the chance to get that, and everyone's like, no, I don't want that anymore. You shouldn't be in the team. So it doesn't really make sense. I don't know. It's also just like hysteria and just emotions run wild. So I don't know. I don't believe in it. I think everyone should get a chance, and it'll be interesting to see who actually takes it.
100%. Even like I've always said as well, Aiden, that certain players could look bad in certain style. So, for example, if we take Frank Lampard's 4-3-3, he was playing with a lone DM and they're attacking eights. That particular formation was never going to be good for Jorginho or Kovacic, let's just say for argument's sake, right? And it's interesting that people are sort of looking at that style, and then when they're seeing this particular football from Tuchel, they still seem to be carrying the images from Frank's days. And I feel like saying to them, forget the way Frank is playing, because Tuchel's not playing in that manner. Tuchel's not playing with a lone DM and attacking eights and fullbacks sort of bombing in crosses. It's totally different style of football. And it's not like Jorginho is a bad player. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like that he's never had this career. He's had a career before Chelsea, and he was quite okay as well under Sarri. And if you play to the way his attributes are set out, he's not a bad player. And similarly for Kovacic as well. Is that something that is important to understand? And similarly for Alonso as well, that left wing back is something that he does very well. And I'm not advocating for Alonso saying that he's a fantastic player, he needs to say, not at all. I think he's got deficiencies, 100%. But, for people to sort of outright sort of disregard them and not realizing the system that we're playing, I mean, that's a bit naive, would you say? Like, should people just forget the way Frank used to play and just appreciate what Tuchel's doing at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, like, you can draw a parallel between, like, Tuchel's team now at Chelsea and, like, what he had at Dortmund. So when he showed up at Dortmund, he bought Castro from Bayer Leverkusen. He used to play right back for Bayer Leverkusen. And then he brought him in and turned him into a box-to-box midfielder. I mean, if you looked at that, in the same scenario, like if you're a Dortmund fan in 2016, you're like, what's this guy doing? He's taking a defensive-minded right back and turning him into our ball carrier in midfield. Obviously it's a bit of a surprise, but if you have any trust in Tuchel's CV and Tuchel's experience, I think what you're pointing to in these, like, this new system, and there's this, like, lack of attacking eights and, like, what Lampard had before, it's important. I think it'll be like, that naivety isn't good. We don't need it.
Yeah.
I think, like, there's so much that Tuchel can give to this team with his versatility. Like, you've already seen Hudson-Odoi playing as a right wing back.
Yeah.
The tweet came out before the first game against.
And something that we probably never imagined, right, Aiden? Like, Hudson-Odoi, right wing back. Like, if someone had said to you during Frank Lampard days, hey, Aiden, Hudson-Odoi is right wing back, you'd be like, hold on, what are you talking about?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy talk. Yeah, and it's interesting because, like, even in the game, it doesn't seem like Hudson-Odoi is playing as a right wing back. He's not, like, he's not doing like a typical, like, defensive style. It's like, it's just part of the system. So it's not, everything isn't as it seems under Tuchel right now, and I think that's what people need to understand. 100%
agree, man. 100% agree, and that's so well said. That even though Hudson-Odoi plays as a supposedly a right wing back, he's really just a right-sided playmaker, more of a wide winger. Just quickly, some interesting news here. I haven't been checking the scores. Man United 9, Southampton 0 happened again. I can't believe Southampton has been smashed 9-0 one more time. Obviously, they got the red card, but kudos to Man United. I would have liked them. I sort of hoped actually that Southampton will get some points out of that so that we can sort of breach the points. But nonetheless, let's carry on, man. That's really well said about the whole players and getting a clean slate and whatnot. Let's talk about this particular upcoming match, big match coming up, London Derby. First of all, what I want to talk to you about, Aiden, is the importance of this particular match from both sides. You know, Spurs haven't been in the best of form. They've been losing quite a bit in the Premier League. They've lost against Brighton just a few days ago, 1-0. Brighton actually played really, really well. Probably deserve to get a few more on them. Before that, it was Liverpool that beat them 3-1. And without Harry Kane, they are a little bit toothless, Aiden, at the moment. So, and then you look at us, new manager, decent performance against Wolves. We've improved on that against Burnley. We won. Probably had enough chances to win against Wolves as well. But yeah, how do you sort of picture this? I mean, who do you sort of give the favoritism to in this particular matchup?
I mean, yeah, Spurs, regardless of who their manager is, Spurs without Kane is obviously not the same team. And they also have a bit of it seems like they have a lot of issues right now, even with the team, with their manager. So I think that's something important. But, you know, the elephant in the room, Jose Mourinho. Mourinho's tactics, I don't even think we need to, like, you don't need to see the lineup. It'll be very obvious what will happen. It's going to be a low block, counter-attacking, just smash and grab football. Yeah. So I think Mourinho in big games, even, look, I'll compare it to the Chelsea. This is the point I'm trying to make. When Mourinho was the Chelsea manager during that 15-16 season where he eventually got sacked, we were doing terribly and sitting 14th in the league, but then for some reason, like in that, the last game of the Champions League group stage against Porto, we're able to get a result because for some reason, even in the darkest times, Mourinho is able to like get a little bit of juice and motivation out of his players. So despite Spurs' terrible form, like back-to-back Premier League losses, just having Mourinho in like these big games is like it's still like an X factor in my opinion. So I'm not that like, oh, Chelsea's gonna win 5-0 or whatever. I still think Spurs are gonna have like a huge threat in this game.
Yeah.
But being said, if we know anything from Thomas Tuchel's first season at Dortmund, the biggest game of the season was the DFB Pokal final. It was against Guardiola's Bayern at the time.
Yeah.
And, he played a 3 at the back formation in that game, and the team was absolutely superb against like.
He ended up winning that, right, Aiden? He won that.
No, they lost. They lost.
They lost that.
0-0 on penalties. So I think if you kind of take Tuchel's experience in big games, like despite having it all against him, like even though he's had these like that Dortmund against that Guardiola team, he's able to pull it out. PSG not so much the same. That's a bit of a blip on the CV. But I think Tuchel, like Mourinho has great experience in big games, big game manager. Tuchel's been good in big games as well. I think it'll be a very tasty match at the end of the day.
100%. I think from both sides, Spurs, I feel like they definitely want to win a particular title this season. They're in the League Cup. They're quite deep in the Europa Cup as well. They're desperate to win a title. I'm not sure. At one point in the Premier League, they were leading it as well. So I'm not really sure right now how they feel about the Premier League. I don't think they're a chance at the moment, but they would definitely fight for the top 4. Obviously, us. Have you seen recently some news coming out in regards to Tuchel's contract? And apparently, it's littered with particular incentives. It's very much incentivized, saying that if you can take us to Champions League for the next 2 seasons in a row, then we will offer you a contract extension and XYZ bonuses. So that in itself should also act as a very good, kick up the backside for Tuchel to make sure that, there's no slip-ups in this particular match, yeah?
I don't know about that. I don't think I've seen this like contract that it's laced with incentives. Most contracts are laced with incentives. It's just kind of the way it works. Like every single one of these like player contracts specifically and manager contracts are going to have these performance-based milestones that you get. But for Tuchel, I don't really think that's what motivates him. Like if I just look at the career, like starting at Mainz, then moving to Dortmund, then moving to PSG, it's never really been about like, it doesn't seem, at least on a surface level, like it's been about money and stuff like that. I think Tuchel will do his best regardless of what the incentive is. Like you can imagine that Dortmund don't pay the same salaries to their managers as Chelsea do, or like any big Premier League club does. But it's not like he did poorly at Dortmund. Like the end of his Dortmund reign wasn't over contract. Like Antonio Conte, you can say something about that. Like maybe he is based on incentives because everybody saw the big fallout in the end of this like kind of money grab at the end of his Chelsea contract. So to me, I think Tuchel, like I really like Tuchel. I think he's a fantastic manager. He speaks really well and like has a great outlook on the game itself. So I don't know if the incentives really matter, but I still think that one of like Tuchel's X factors is that he really wants to win. Like in his post-match interview last week, as he walked off, he basically said to the camera and to Spurs, like, we're going to come and we're going to come to win. And I know most managers always say that, but it's just something about the way that Tuchel says it that
there's
really
a venom. There's a venom when he talks, right?
Yeah, it's something about it that I actually really believe what he's saying, and that's one of the great things about him.
100%. Look, we all know Frank Lampard was, fantastic in press conference. He knew exactly what to say, but I feel like Tuchel also knows exactly what to say. But there seems to be a lot of kick into what he says.
Yeah.
Like he really, really gives an impression that I'm not joking around. Like I mean it. I mean it when I say this. So especially when he said last off the back of I think Wolves match, he said that I want this team to be looked at by oppositions, something to feed. You know what I mean? Like I want my team to be feed on the oppositions that they don't want to play us, which is so great. And obviously in the recent video, there was a video I think by BT Sports about Tuchel and what his ambitions are, and they asked him, why Chelsea and whatnot, and he's like, why not? Why not Chelsea? And he had a poor Christmas, and this was apparently the gift that was just under the tree, and he's so happy to have it now. And it makes sense, Aiden, what you just said, that it's not about the money. I don't know. Do you feel like he'd probably be earning a lot more than what he was earning in PSG? I mean, I feel like it's probably be on par, or maybe not even at in certain point.
Yeah, I don't know about the actual numbers, but I imagine it would be pretty similar, in the range. It's not going to be, 5 times less or anything like that. But I imagine,
or it's not going to be 5 times more, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think it'll be in the same ballpark.
Yeah, no, 100%. All right, let's move on to the next part, which is obviously the interesting formation that we've been playing under Thomas Tuchel. Obviously, it's not entirely a 3-4-3. For me, when I break it down, it kind of looks like 3-2-3-2 at times, with 5 attackers and sort of 5 defenders. But it's very mobile, very fluid. It sort of shifts with the ball. When we have the ball, it's a different formation. Without the ball, it's a different formation. Do you kind of see this continuing for the time being, Aiden, obviously against Spurs, but also down the track? Do you kind of see this sort of continuing? And is he sort of embedding a system for the time being so the players kind of get used to it until he starts sort of tweaking around with it?
I actually have no idea, and that's kind of one of the things I like about Tuchel, is that I have zero clue what he's going to do in the next game. Like every single game that we have coming up, or anything that, or any lineup or anything like that. Even when we see the lineup, I have no idea what Tuchel will do, and I kind of like that surprise factor. But from what it seems like, we can talk about what we've seen. It seems like he came in, played a 3 at the back formation, because he's done it before with Dortmund. It's really solid. You can get those 3 defenders and then have your 2 wing backs up rather than having your 2 central defenders and having your 2 fullbacks going up. It's just you have more defenders. And then he picked experience in that first game, less academy players, more senior experienced Chelsea players to kind of build a core. And I think we will see a little bit more of that just as the team gets acclimated to Tuchel and his tactics and things like that. There will be a mixing of some of these things that we've seen. I still think that Mason Mount is going to start. I still think Hudson-Odoi will start, and I think potentially Havertz will start this game as well. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what he'll do, and I think that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, me too. I feel like everyone that I've sort of talked about Thomas Tuchel in regards to how he sets up, they've always said this exactly what you've said, that it's a bit of a mystery, and I like that because I think he treats the opposition on its own as opposed to having a preset style and formation that this is what I'm going to play almost against every team. Much like I suppose and this is one of the surprising things, because I feel like last season Frank was a lot more flexible into how he went into different games. He sort of changed things around depending on how certain opposition sort of set up. But this season, it felt like he always wanted to just keep persevering with the 4-3-3 with a lone DM and attacking 8s. And I felt like there was a lot of imbalance in the team. I felt like the team probably did not have the right ingredients to play out the 4-3-3 the kind of way he wanted to play it out. Yeah. Whereas now with Tuchel coming in, he must have seen the characteristics of the players and thought, okay, I'm going to play in this way to get the best out of who I have, as opposed to I want to play a style that perhaps they're not capable of playing. Is that how you sort of see it as well?
Kind of. I mean, on the Frank Lampard point, I agree with you. Last season he was a little bit more versatile, and I think the last game of the season against Wolves, that 2-0 win, he switched to a 3 at the back formation when it was mostly 4 at the back for the entire season, and that tactical switch, just needing to get a win and being hard to beat, was a credit to Lampard, and he was able to do that. And then this season comes along, and it does seem a little bit more rigid. And then unfortunately now he's gone, but it seemed a little bit more rigid for this tactical idea. If I understand what you're saying, I think Tuchel's style isn't his style isn't to pick what he thinks and then try to jam the players into it. I think it's very much work with what he has and then go from there.
Absolutely.
These ideas are kind of apparent in his entire managerial career. We'll go back to Dortmund again, I really like his double pivot that he had of Weigl and Castro, because those 2 players had played in a double pivot before, and he saw that they could. and essentially kind of turned that and made his own double pivot, which is a little interesting as like a manager. It's not just keeping with this like cookie cutter idea that's been done in the past, like innovating on his own and making these new things. So I think even like one thing that I could see potentially happening is seeing James go in the middle. I think that's like something that just like as I think about it, as we could see in the season, that would be really interesting. Like a game where if you do have Hudson-Odoi at the wing back position and you need a box to like someone who's going to be like in the DM position to be really strong, pass the ball. I think Reece James could see a couple games there. That could be really interesting. We've kind of seen that progression like in modern football. Like Kimmich, for example, started out as a right back, a very similar skill set. Guardiola saw the potential and moved him central, and now I don't know. I feel like Tuchel could see the same thing with Reece James, but we'll have to see. The skill sets are a little bit different, and it's a little bit harder to find a good right back these days than a central PM. That won't happen. But it's just like an interesting tactical thing that could happen under Tuchel.
I 100% understand what you're saying. I said it last season, Ethan, when we had Lamptey, and I know hindsight is a bit of a thing, and it's something that we shouldn't always ponder around about. But I remember when we let go of Lamptey, and I said to myself, and I said it in the TL, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh, we can't keep everyone." I understand that we can't keep everyone, but I really liked the look of Lamptey when he played for Arsenal, and then obviously the news came out that he was moving on, and I said, why not try our level best to actually keep this player, because he's really good as a right back, and not just that, he could possibly play as a right wing back, as a right winger. And I said, a lot of people sort of jumped on me saying that, oh, but Reece James is the right back. There's no way he's. And I said, Reece James could be way more than a right back. He could possibly move in as a DM. He did that against Wigan. I had a whole heap of different footages that was available through Y-Scout. And I saw Reece James, having decent games in that particular position. And here we are now under Thomas Tuchel. And here's the thing. I want to get your perspective on this as well, Aiden. I personally never, ever thought, and I could get shot down here, I never thought Frank Lampard was a long-term thing. I never, ever thought that. I thought he was someone who was brought in to rejuvenate the fan base, get them united, create a nice culture. But I never, ever thought that he was going to be someone who's going to be here for years and years and years and years and years. So having said that, that's why I was surprised that someone like Lamptey had left, because I felt like had he stayed, then we could potentially, as you said, could use someone like Reece James alongside, let's say, I don't know, Kante in the 6-6. Reece James sort of stays deeper. Kante sort of seeks and intercepts and destroys play. And then you can possibly use someone like Tariq Lamptey either as a right back or a right wing back. And we have a far wholesome of a team. I mean, am I being mad here, or is that sort of somewhat making sense to you?
No, yeah, I understand. I think, it's interesting because the appointment of Petr Cech was really kind of to do that. His appointment was to come in and connect the academy to the first team. That was really his job. He was never really involved in like looking for transfers or anything like that. Like, some people were very confused about that.
Yeah.
This idea that, Cech will go into the market and buy players. It was really like, the Mendy thing aside, that was something else. But really the whole point was to integrate this academy that we hadn't, like his job was to integrate the academy that other managers were not doing. And to see Lamptey go was interesting. I think a little bit has to do with Azpilicueta. Like, we already have two right backs in James and Azpilicueta. I think that could have been, had this been a year or two from now with Azpilicueta kind of going downhill, then maybe it would be a different story. But yeah, Lamptey's doing well. He had potential, but ultimately it's just like another Chelsea product that, has been made and unfortunately been moved on from the club like so many others.
No, absolutely. But yeah, this whole point about Reece James playing in DM is something that I'm entertaining as well. I'm glad that you're also on board that could possibly happen, because a lot of people don't want to talk about it. They've sort of penciled him down as a right back or someone who could play in the right centre back position where Azpilicueta is playing at the moment. But I feel like saying he probably has the capacity and the capabilities to play in the DM role as well. He's got the physique. He's got the ball playing ability. He can cross from deep in that zone. His passing isn't that bad either. So yeah, just on this whole midfield situation, obviously Kante is now fit. And so far we've seen Kovacic and Jorginho, and, kind of makes sense against Wolves and Burnley, as generally they're defensive more or less. I think Spurs might be the same case as well. With under Mourinho, as you said, sort of sit back and snatch a victory in the counter. Who do you sort of picture to feature in the double sixes, considering Kante is not very disciplined to just sit deep, so he wants to move forward, and Kovacic is not someone who's disciplined either to just stay deep. Mason Mount's name has been thrown around, and I don't know how disciplined he is sitting deep. My theory is that he could possibly just go with Kante and Jorginho, but that itself, we've seen it many times that hasn't worked out. So in your mindset, who are you sort of thinking is the double sixes in this particular match?
I think the double sixes really depend on, like, they're not just themselves. They also really depend on who the wing backs are. I think you saw in the first game when you saw Hudson-Odoi kind of rushing back and making that tackle to stop the goal. Like, that's kind of where your sitting midfielder should be making a tackle, but there was no one there. I think if you have a Alonso on the left side as a left wing back, your left side defense isn't going to be so great. So maybe an N'Golo Kante works better there. But in my mind, I think in a double six of N'Golo Kante and Mount would be absolutely fantastic. That's what I like. Regardless of who's around them, I think Mount and Kante have two skill sets that really complement each other. Kante is a bit more defensive player. Mount is more of a ball progressor and has a good eye for a pass. And I also think Mount has a really good work rate, which is kind of underestimated. Like, he's fantastic on pressures, as is Kante. So if you want a high pressing midfield that's going to run after the ball the entire game, N'Golo Kante and Mason Mount are your two guys.
Honestly, on paper, that sounds fantastic, doesn't it? N'Golo Kante and Mason Mount, as you said, complements each other. One defensively very astute, great interception. The other one, lots of energy, great pressing, ball progression, as you said. My only worry is that none of them, I feel like they will both at times bomb up, leaving a massive hole in the middle. And if the defense is sort of not pushing up alongside, then there could be a bit of an issue. But moving along, let's talk a little bit about Spurs. Obviously, no Harry Kane. But here's another news. Apparently, no Ndombele as well, who's been a fantastic player for them this season alongside Højbjerg. I feel like no Kane, no Ndombele. Apparently, there's some news as well. No Reguilon as well on the left side for them.
As well, yeah.
So, Aiden, how do you picture it is their home match. They have lost 2 in a row now. Yeah. Surely 3 in a row, if we were to get a win against them, that would be panic stations at Spurs. How do you picture Spurs sort of really setting up on this particular match against us?
I think the one change that we'll see, it'll be pretty similar to their last game against Brighton, but I think instead Dyer will come back in and Winks will come off the bench for Ndombele. It's not necessarily the best change, but that's kind of what I see. We've kind of seen this thing. Dyer was left out after his performance against Liverpool. And we've kind of seen this in the past with Mourinho, where he'll take like a certain player who he really likes, and Dyer is that guy for Mourinho. Doesn't play well, then drops him to get a response out of him to see if he can, squeeze the performance out of him. So I think Dyer will be back in against Chelsea and will be like a standout performer without a doubt. Like I'm concerned about Eric Dyer in their back three. That'll be pretty tough. But then Ndombele, like he's been outside of Kane and Son, he's been their best player. Yeah. And I think without him, they lack a lot in midfield. He's really good on the turn, drives the ball well, a great ball carrier. And like without that, I don't know what Spurs will do, because they used him as the link between Kane and Heung-min.
Absolutely, yeah.
And now it's going to be, I think maybe Vinicius starts potentially. Like I know he was on the bench. They might go for a front three of Vinicius, Son, and Lucas Moura, and just try to go pacey counterattack. I don't know, but from my perspective, this is a Jose Mourinho, who is very well known for his park the bus strategy, despite him inventing the term park the bus when Spurs against him, but now he's doing it for Spurs.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think he'll do 3 at the back, try to be compact, and then we'll see his pacey forwards up top to do some counterattacking for him. That's what I think.
No, I definitely probably agree with that as well. You know Lias. I talk to him quite a lot. You know who Lias is as well. I had him in my channel yesterday, and he made a very good point, Aiden, how he said that the one thing about Spurs and the thing about Jose is that he thinks that the Spurs defense in the likes of Dyer, Alderweireld, and Rodon, and he feels that it was a very good point from Lias where he was saying that Jose thinks that he could just nick a goal and then sit back and just relax. And he thinks that these set of defenders are quite capable of shutting out a particular match when in essence they're not. They're not your, the Porto days that Jose had with Carvalho and Paulo Ferreira and whoever else back then. Obviously at Chelsea days, Terry, Carvalho. How much is this statement true? Because I feel like he may try to sit back. Do you think that defense with Dyer, Alderweireld, Rodon, Davison, Sanchez, are they good enough to sit back for 90 minutes, shut up shop with the kind of caliber of attackers that we have?
Yeah, I think they are.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I do think they are. I mean, if Mourinho can do anything, it's set up a defensive team. And I mean, if you just look at their stats this season, they've only conceded like 20 goals, I think, which is it's pretty good. They're among the fewest in the Premier League aside from City, obviously. Right. I don't think any one of those players isn't a good defender. Rodon's quite inexperienced because he's young, but I still think he's good, full of potential. Eric Dyer's great. Alderweireld's extremely experienced and a great defender. I think they can shut up shop for 90 minutes, and I think one of the issues with Mourinho's teams is kind of this interplay of what he wants to do, which is be completely defensive and go counterattacking, and then also some of this pressure to be a little bit more forward thinking and kind of progressive in the match. And they kind of get lost in two minds. And that was very apparent, like in the Liverpool game, where it seemed like at one point they're trying to go all defensive and counterattack, and the other time they're pushing. And Mourinho's not a good enough system manager, in my opinion, not anymore, to have a team that can be so versatile in a game. I think it's pick one or the other. And the times this season where Spurs have been caught like that Liverpool game is really when they're caught in minds trying to do two different things. I agree with Elias' point. I mean, he doesn't have the same caliber of team, but this Spurs team historically, even over the past couple of seasons, has always been one of the best defensive teams in the league, and Lloris is a fantastic goalie on top of that.
No, good point. I'm a bit scared now. I was being optimistic that perhaps we could break them up.
I think people are underestimating Spurs. Like they have bad injuries and they have bad form, but the thing is that you never know what to expect with Jose Mourinho, and that's kind of why they want him and why they're keeping faith with him. Daniel Levy is still interested in keeping him on board despite this poor form. It doesn't look like they're in poor form, so still in sixth in the table. But being sixth in the table now to at one point being the league leaders and being in a title race earlier in the season, I think that's
absolutely
huge.
And this is exactly the point that Manhandle CFC Jonathan has said, that don't want to underestimate Spurs on Thursday. I feel like a lot of people have written them off due to injuries and form, and Jose relishes stuff like that. It's exactly what you just said, Aiden.
that Madrid team that he had was Madrid. It was Mourinho and Madrid against the world, and they set up as it was like this David and Goliath story every single time, that they want the whole world against them, and they're ready to go on. Like Mourinho's got all the confidence in the world to do that. Spurs maybe Madrid, but it's still the same principle.
Maybe we need to change up our tune, how we sort of lead up to this particular match, and probably just say Spurs are going to win. Spurs are going to just give them a false hope, because at the moment, I've been sort of going around saying, we should win this, and a lot of the fan base as well.
I still think that Chelsea absolutely need to win this. If you look at the rest of Chelsea's season and the way that it's set up, if Chelsea don't catch up ground now, I don't think. Well, this is what I think. In the next 4 or 5 weeks, Chelsea's season is completely decided. We're in the FA Cup, the Champions League, and we all have huge Premier League games. By the middle of March, if we're not in the top 4 race, we're out of the top 4 race. If we haven't done anything against Atletico, Champions League's finished, and we're finishing probably 6th or 7th this season. That being said, if Chelsea can catch up for the rest of the season, looking at their games, like for example, on the back of both of our Champions League legs, we play United and then Liverpool. Those are 2 huge matches. Take points away from both of those teams, and you're right back in a top 4 race. And then also, probably the biggest threat to Chelsea's top 4 hopes this season is Leicester. No discredit to West Ham and Everton like that, but I think Leicester's ahead of them. And the last matches of Leicester's season, back to back are United, Chelsea, Spurs. So that's a potential 0 points from 9 in the last 3 game weeks of the season, one of those being against Chelsea. And if we're not in the top 4 race by then, it's done.
Yeah,
but the other way, Chelsea were catching up at the end of last season, like on the business end of last season's Premier League. They were catching up to those other teams. And if you remember, there was that Leicester-Tottenham game, and then Leicester played Sheffield, excuse me. And then leading up to those, people were dropping points, and then Chelsea were overtake everyone and end up in 4th when they weren't in the top 4 going into the end of last season. So I think this game against Spurs is a must-win game because there's too many games coming up from now. Like even Leicester played Liverpool in a couple of weeks. Aston Villa play West Ham, who are both ahead of us and tied, or Villa's tied on points, but they have games in hand. West Ham is ahead of us, so on and so forth. Everton have tough matches coming up as well. This is a huge set of games coming up for Chelsea.
No, 100% agreed, man. 100% agreed. It's so well said that the next set of games will determine exactly whether we are actually in the mix of things or we're actually not, which is so true. Let's not talk about some of our players because I want to sort of look forward to obviously this match against Spurs, but there's certain players I've got a bit of question marks on them. Aidan, I want to start with Timo Werner. First of all, your thoughts on this particular player. I feel like this player works hard, man. He really does work hard, but there's something about his finishing, confidence. I don't know what it is. He lashes onto opportunities. It seems like he's not calm when he's into those situations. It's all snapshot. It's no composure, right? This particular match, obviously, he started against Burnley. I don't think he had a really good game against Burnley. He should have had a couple of chances where he probably should have put them away, but didn't do so. Spurs, he did score against them earlier this season. Do you start someone like Timo Werner in this game, or do you go with perhaps a Havertz, Tammy Abraham up front, or a Giroud and Havertz up front? How do you sort of see the striker situation?
I think if you kind of think about what Spurs will do if you're going to play a low block and kind of set up and ready for counter, Timo Werner's game is playing off the back of a defender, and I don't think Spurs are necessarily going to let him do that. So just from like a tactical standpoint, I don't know if Werner is the best choice. I personally really like Werner. He scored against Spurs before in an away game, scored in that stadium. It was a penalty, but still a goal. Someone like Giroud played against Spurs the last time we beat them. Would be good. Target man in the box. We have Hudson-Odoi able to cross the ball now. Ziyech can absolutely deliver a pass. Maybe Havertz, even whoever. So from that way, I don't know if Werner is the best fit for Spurs. I would see him start and get a goal, but I don't know if he will. And I think Tuchel knows that. He kind of said it in his last. He said it in his last interview about Werner that his confidence is completely shot. Like the thing he said was really interesting. He said, there's no amount of words or kind of like patting on the back that you can do to a striker like Werner in this scenario, because it's not going to help. He just needs goals to get him back going. And maybe coming off the bench late in the game might let him do that, but I don't know if he's the right fit to start against Spurs. That's what I think.
Would you possibly entertain two up front, maybe? Have like a Giroud or a Tammy and then have Werner just behind? Would you entertain that at all?
Giroud plus Werner. I wouldn't do Giroud plus Werner. I would do Havertz plus Giroud, and Havertz said it himself. He likes playing with Giroud. I'd do that. I think that would be very interesting. Plus Havertz.
100%. I really like Havertz playing in that just behind the striker. He's done very well. Obviously, he's had that link up with Tammy a long time back against Barnsley. I know it's Barnsley, but at the end of the day, still, the combination was really good. The other player that I want to talk, you did mention about Ziyech. Ziyech obviously missed out against Burnley, and there's a lot of talk that's creeping up in the fan base that a lot of people are not appreciating Hakim Ziyech because his form hasn't been the greatest. They're starting to think he's a bit lethargic in the field. He's a bit lightweight. He's a bit hit and miss. I've always said that. Look, I'm going to be honest, Aidan. I'm a bit biased with Hakim Ziyech. I like the player a lot. There's an emotional attachment with Hakim Ziyech, so I'm a bit biased. But having said that, I do like his ability to create something out of nowhere. Even when he has a poor game, he's got that X factor, that pass to split open something and allow for a great opportunity. He even has his own shooting ability that can create havoc. I like to have a player like that starting. Your thoughts? Would you start him against Spurs?
I would start him against Spurs. I think what you said is pretty true. I like Ziyech's X factor, and he's a player that, like, before he joined Chelsea, Ziyech had the most shots per 90 than any other player in world football except for Cristiano Ronaldo. This guy's all the time. He's always delivering balls, and he's always keeping the opponent pinned, which is something I think we'll need against Spurs. If you can keep that Spurs team pinned back, I think, and we get enough chances, Chelsea will win the game. I don't think that a pacey winger like Pulisic is going to be the go-to man. Like, if you play Pulisic at right wing, it's like this pace versus low block idea. Like, if you have pacey wingers, when are they going to get behind these like low block? I think it's better to have someone like Ziyech who can create something, have a Giroud in the box that he can put a cross in for him, something like that, and even take a shot from 18. If Kovacic starts and we see those shots, like Jorginho and Kovacic shooting from outside of the box is absolutely horrendous. I think someone finally needs to take that role on, and I think that player is Hakim Ziyech.
100% agree. Taha Deb, really good commentator. Dude, Ziyech is the most talented. If Tuchel gets the best out of him, he will be a game changer.
I mean, like, a good example for this is Mkhitaryan at Dortmund. Like, Mkhitaryan before Dortmund was awful, and then he had a 30-plus goal contribution season under Tuchel, and then leaves Tuchel's management, and somehow same thing. He's lazy, he's lethargic, so on and so forth, right? Like, it's the same criticisms of this player that we have now, but like, Thomas Tuchel has this ability to take specific players and turn them into world beaters, and I think Ziyech is a similar ilk of Mkhitaryan and could potentially be a player like that. Let's hope he gets the best out of him.
100%. I mean, we all know what Mkhitaryan did under Thomas Tuchel. I think he might have even been. I don't know. I could be wrong here, but he was player of the season in the Bundesliga or something like that. Mkhitaryan at one point under Thomas Tuchel. I could be wrong here, but he was absolutely fantastic. And then obviously he then goes to Man United, and it's a different sort of style, different everything, and all of a sudden everyone thinks Mkhitaryan is a poor player. So it'll be interesting to see what. I think Tuchel will relish having a player like Ziyech as well. I think he understands that this guy is capable of so much. So hopefully it was very, very understandable that he didn't play against Burnley. He did come out. And this is the other thing that I like about Tuchel, Aiden. I want to get your thoughts on this one as well. Yeah. He's quite transparent with the media. He actually comes out and says, look, he's played quite a few games since he's come back from the injury. We just thought that had he played any more minutes, we could have possibly triggered another injury for this particular player, so hence he's not playing. And he's been quite open about a lot of other things post-match. He's been saying, this is how I want to play. The reason why I'm playing with Callum Hudson-Odoi is I want a lot more sort of ability to take on the right side of, the way he talks about pressing. Our pressing has been a lot better. Do you enjoy seeing a manager coming out and talking about tactics so openly to the fan base, which I suppose, it's a great insight for us as well?
Yeah, I really like it. Like, I think a funny parallel is last season or a couple seasons ago when Bielsa went through that whole Spygate thing. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. He gave like that 45-minute PowerPoint presentation where he talked about all the tactics. Like, that's incredible. I love to see that. And it's funny because Tuchel's so confident the way he does it that he explains his tactics to the media, and still you can't really stop them. Like, it was the Sean Dyche said, I can't remember what Burnley player it was, but there's that quote that came out with Hudson-Odoi on the right side. Do you remember who it was? It was
Brady.
Yeah, exactly.
It was Liam Toomey. Liam Toomey came out with that too.
Exactly. Yeah. He's like, I can't stop. Like, he's like, what he's going to do every time. He's like, I can't stop him. It's kind of Tuchel says these things, but it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, like, Chelsea being better at them or Chelsea being good at them and you knowing about them is two completely different things. So I love it's nice to just like get an insight. I love the way he does it.
No, absolutely. All right, let's start wrapping this up soon. Let's get into your lineups formation. Just quickly as well, obviously you're going to touch on this in your lineup, but Alonso starts for you in the left wing back, or are we going to bring back bad boy Chilwell?
I'll get to that.
Everyone hanging on it.
Come and get back to you. I'll go with the rest of the lineup first.
Okay, let's go. All right, let's get your lineup and then I'll share mine. How are you going to set up against Spurs?
Okay,
go from the top or from the bottom, however you want to sort of set this up.
We'll just start from the bottom. I'll go. Okay. So across the back, Mendy in goal.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing as last time. 3-4-2-1. So the three at the back are Reece James, Thiago Silva, and Antonio Rudiger. That's right to left. And then right wing back, I still want to see Hudson-Odoi. In the 2 6s, I want to see N'Golo Kante and Mason Mount.
Okay.
On the left wing back, I'll go Marcus Alonso.
Oh no!
2 and the 1, but it's really going to be like a 1 and an interchangeable 2. I'll go Havertz, Giroud, and Ziyech. Wow,
that's a strong team. Interesting that you've taken Azpilicueta out and given Reece James. Is that sort of tactical, or sort of thinking that Azpi's played a couple of matches and time to give Reece James a go?
I think that James is faster than Azpilicueta, and if they're gonna go smash and grab on the counter, I don't think if you're gonna who's gonna win in a foot race, Reece James or Azpilicueta? I think the answer is pretty obvious. And then having Hudson-Odoi as the wing back just helps us with that pacey problem. I think that's what I've done.
No, that makes sense.
I gave Alonso the left wing back spot because even though Alonso is borderline the worst defender Chelsea have had in years, for some reason this guy scores goals and scores good goals against Spurs. So I don't know. That's kind of the way I think about it.
No, man, that's a very good team. So let's just recap. You got Mendy, Reece James, Thiago Silva, Rudiger, Alonso, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Kante, Mason Mount, your double sixes, Ziyech, Havertz, and Giroud.
Yeah.
Man, that's good. That's a good team, man. Ziyech and Havertz and Giroud up front with Callum Hudson-Odoi. Alonso, we know what he's capable of with Spurs. He loves taking that position on the left side. And I love the way Tuchel's using Alonso in the sense that, I mean, it could be different against Spurs. He may have to defend a little bit more. But against Burnley, I felt like he always covered Alonso because I think he understands that Alonso's defensively is a bit of a suspect. So he's always covered that side with either Rudiger or Kovacic sort of leaning a little bit on that side. And then really just telling Alonso that just go up there and just be a left wing forward. That's all I want you to do. And just be there whenever the crosses come in or whenever you get that ball from Pulisic. So I really enjoyed how he's sort of he's used Alonso so far. Man, let me give you my lineup, and we'll then have a prediction to close things off. Yeah. It's really hard to beat your lineup now because I really like that lineup. That's a very, very good lineup. Okay, but I'm going to change things up a little bit. Mendy obviously in the goalkeeping position. I do like the Reece James in right centre back, and I feel like Azpilicueta playing 2 games in a row. The only caveat to this is that I think having Azpi in the team, that leadership, it's a feel-good factor that I feel the team has really enjoyed over the last couple of games. Obviously, everyone will say that it's a honeymoon period and whatnot, but I do like the fact when Azpi plays, the captain's there, just gives us that extra. Like we feel like we're a couple of inches taller with Azpi there, just metaphorically speaking. But I do understand why Reece James could possibly get a game, and I wouldn't mind him starting here. So Reece James, Thiago Silva, Rudiger. Look, I'm not a fan favorite of Rudiger. I've always said that. I've always liked Zuma. Honestly, I've liked him a lot. His aerial abilities. He's quite dynamic as a defender. He's strong, and he's less error prone than Rudiger. But look, I think Thomas Tuchel he fancies someone like Rudiger, so that's why I'm keeping him in there.
I don't know why, but I like Rudiger for some reason. I'm with you. I like Zuma more than I like Rudiger for the same reasons. It's not like they're that different of players. They're pretty similar. The only difference is that Zuma is just a little bit better at everything, like in every aspect. Better at defending, better at heading. Someone just said I need to.
Someone's got a nice little message for you. Aiden's a great guest. Thank you for that, Armand. But yeah, you were saying.
I think I like Zuma more than I like Rudiger, but I think Tuchel will keep Rudiger in.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. That's why I'm sort of sticking with Rudiger, even though I would have gone with Zuma. But anyway, in the left wing back position, I know there's a lot of debate about having Chilwell back in the team, but I'm sticking with Alonso. And it's not because I love the player, because I know the player is quite average. But left wing back is something that he knows how to do well. And the way Thomas Tuchel sort of deploying that and covering for his defensive deficiency, I don't mind him, because one thing about Alonso that we can all agree, he knows how to find those space in the box, and he's always there somehow open for an opportunity to snatch on. And the thing I like about him is that he's clinical. More times than none, he's clinical. Yeah. He finishes opportunities. Whereas someone like Chilwell, even though he has the ability to score, and we've seen that opportunity against Wolves where Havertz cuts in, lays it beautifully for Chilwell inside the box. Chilwell takes a shot that really should have hit the target, and he didn't even hit the target, and went skied over the top. And I feel like someone like Alonso might have actually put that away against Wolves. So yeah, Alonso in the left wing back position. In the middle, look, I do definitely like Kante and Mason Mount combination, but I'm a bit worried that both of them are just going to bomb up and leave a massive hole unless a lot of work is done in training and Tuchel somehow finds a particular way to cover for that. But I'm not convinced that all of this can be done just over 1 week of training. So I will actually go with Kante Jorginho. Jorginho allows for the build-up from the back. Kante, just go and roam around, do whatever you need to do. The only issue with this, and I know this, in a counter, Jorginho is going to get ripped apart. So I completely get that. But this is something hopefully Tuchel will have some sort of solution for, with the way he covers Jorginho. Up front, I do like your Ziyech Havertz combination. I must admit, I really, really like that. Obviously, I'll have Calvert-Lewin in the right wing-back position. I don't know how you can drop him. You really can't drop him. He's been the man of the match for the past 2 games. He's absolutely burnt it on the right side, so I'll keep him. And I think his one-on-one abilities on the right side is going to be phenomenal for us. Yeah. Ziyech and Havertz definitely up front. And I'm a bit torn here between Giroud and Tammy or even Werner. I feel like if I'm going to play Havertz and Ziyech, then I don't want to also play Werner. I think I'd probably go with either Giroud or Tammy. Giroud is definitely a very, very superb link-up player, superb targetsman. But I feel like Tammy, he gets a lot more out of Havertz and Ziyech when he plays. His link-up with them, I think, it's a little bit quicker than Giroud, and he tends to get a little bit more when playing with them. So I'll probably go with Tammy, even though Tammy got substituted at halftime against Burnley. That would be my team. So Mendy, Reece James, Thiago Silva, Rudiger, Calvert-Lewin, Alonso, Jorginho, Kante, Ziyech, Havertz, Tammy. That's how I would line up.
Havertz over Werner.
Havertz starts over Werner. Yeah, Havertz starts over Werner. I feel like
3-4-2-1 is last time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
What's your score prediction, my man?
1-0 max.
As in Chelsea win?
1-0 Chelsea. Yeah, that's what I think.
I think so as well. 1-0 or 2-1. I'm hoping we will get.
Well, it depends. If Jorginho plays in the middle, like Jorginho got memed that time he played against Liverpool, like that video of Jorginho running against the referee, like and how he the referee was against Liverpool on a Liverpool counter. So if Jorginho plays 2-1, he'll be instrumental in both the goals, but he'll build some back. But if Jorginho doesn't play, 1-0. See, out of this, if my team plays 1-0, if your team plays 2-1, how's that?
Fair enough. Look, it's a win. It's a win-win situation. So we'll take that. Guys, we're going to wrap things up just quickly here. A couple of comments here. CFC Stephen, Christian Pulisic plays 9 against Tottenham on Thursday. Look, I think Tuchel is going to use Pulisic as a super sub once again. He's mentioned it a few times that he likes players in the caliber of Pulisic to come off the bench and really have impact. Pulisic against Burnley created the assist for Alonso. Pulisic was a right wing back at one point against Wolves, where Chilwell came off. So I don't know. For the timing, I think Callum Hudson-Odoi will play. I think up front he will look at the likes of Ziyech and Havertz. And as you said, Aiden, what good is it to have a player?
Really quick, can I just address this one thing? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's what I think. Pulisic as a false nine is a good idea. That would be an interesting tactic. But I think the only time a false nine has ever worked against a really low block defending team was not 9 years ago. At this point, was Spain versus Italy in their Euro 2012 final, where Fabregas played as a false nine.
Yeah.
The only reason you can do that is because Fabregas will drop deep against this low block team, and then you have guys like Xavi and Iniesta who can play these masterful balls behind the back line when you've actually dragged their defenders out. I don't think Chelsea have those players, the same caliber of passer, so I don't think it's possible. And false nine in general, I think, is a little bit of an overrated system. Even your Klopp's false nine with Firmino is different than what Christian Pulisic as a false nine would give you, because Pulisic he doesn't have that same skill set the false nine needs. Or unless he's not talking about a nine, unless he's actually talking about a striker, in which case I think that's even less likely, because
less likely, exactly.
Pulisic play under Tuchel, and he never played in the striker position. He always plays on that left forward position and gets behind the defenders. But in general, I don't like false nine. I think it's really hard to pull off. You need a manager like Guardiola, who's coached his team and drilled his team 3+ years before you can
or even Jurgen Klopp, the way he plays Firmino.
I think Firmino's false nine is not the conventional false nine. It's not the same thing. It's a little bit different. It's more of Firmino adding bodies into midfield rather than acting as a playmaker in that false nine. Fabregas false nine is a good example. He acts as a playmaker in the hole. Wesley Sneijder used to play false nine sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a similar thing like that. So I don't know. Pulisic for false nine is interesting, but I don't think it'll happen.
I think even Messi at one point, when they had Henry and Eto'o.
Yeah, exactly. It's a perfect example, right? There was a point in Messi's career where he came central, and the reason why he comes central is because he has this ability to be this playmaker rather than just a body in midfield, kind of like Firmino. Firmino's not the same, player that Messi is. So you can think of it that way. That's a perfect example.
Yeah, no, 100% understood. I want to just address this before we wrap things up. Hayden, what an awful team. Drops our second best player in Kovacic, keeps Jorginho. I just want to explain this to you, Hayden.
Kovacic isn't our second best player. Ignore the comment.
Obviously, Aiden's chosen Kante and Mount, and he's please look back in the stream earlier on as to why his explanation was in regards to why he's choosing Kante and Mason Mount. My reasoning is, look, Kante is fit, and Tuchel really, really likes Kante. He said that he's always wanted to have Kante in his team, and finally he's part of, he's a manager of a particular team that has Kante. So I'm pretty sure as soon as Kante is fit, which I think he is now, he will start him. And if that's the case, and Tuchel said that he sees Kante as part of the double sixes, and he thinks that Kante's predominant role is to seek and destroy, so he wants to give him the freedom to run up and down, you really need someone that's going to sit deep. You can't have Kovacic as well alongside Kante, who loves to drive with the ball, because telling Kovacic to stay deep and just not move around is sort of it's bringing down his particular game plan as well. So that's why I'm not going with someone like Kante and Kovacic, because both of them will bomb up, live in a massive hole. And this is the reason, only purely because of the style that both of these players have. That's why I'm going with Jorginho. And that's the reason, Hayden, I'm going with this. It's got nothing to do with Kovacic. I like Kovacic. I think he's been playing fantastically since Tuchel's taken over. But, it's definitely not a particular reason why, that I've taken him out. So,
why do you like Kovacic? Just one last point. Why do you like Kovacic? What is can someone explain to me what this guy's like, why he has such crazy fans? What is this?
I'm not going to say, first of all, KTBFFH, is my mic all right now? Or are you saying Miz? Are you dropping Mount? Oh, sorry. Are you dropping Mount? I'll get to that. yeah, the whole thing about Kovacic, Aiden, first of all, I'm not a crazy fan. I'm more of a guy that sees the way a manager plays a system and how a particular player fits in. I think the way Tuchel has been playing in recent times, especially with the likes of teams that are sitting deep, he wants to have more of the ball. Kovacic is very good with possession, Aiden. I feel like his ball control, his ability to be press resistant, the build up, his ability to drive through the middle and really break open things. He's got the eye for key passes as well. I know we're going to say that he hasn't done that many key passes, but if you look back in the games against Wolves and Burnley, there were instances where he's put in some really, really good passes. He definitely has deficiencies as well, Aiden. He's not the greatest shot. He doesn't have a shooting ability. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's not the greatest shooter. He's not consistently assisting. But I think in regards to the tempo of the game, he's someone who controls that. Not every midfielder needs to go out there and score. We do have a lot of other attackers that can do that. You look at Liverpool's midfield, the likes of Henderson, Wijnaldum, Keita, Fabinho. It's not like they're all going out there and scoring goals. They've all got different roles. They're all workhorses. Whereas I feel like someone like Kovacic, he controls the tempo of the game. I know a lot of people are going to say, sideways passing, this, that. But all of that matters in regards to moving the opposition around and creating that space and allowing for our team to have the movement. So that's how I sort of see Kovacic. I don't think he's an overly fantastic player. I'm definitely not a crazy fan of him. But I do appreciate what he brings in certain styles, if that sort of makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Just to answer KTB, why are we dropping? So Aiden is not dropping Mount. KTB, FFH is keeping Mason Mount. I'm dropping Mount. Look, purely for this. Look, it's not really dropping Mount. I just feel like someone like Kai Havertz alongside Tammy Abraham up front with Ziyech will probably do a job. Look, Mason would probably do a good job as well. If it's Ziyech, Mason Mount, and Tammy Abraham up front, I'm not going to complain. So it's nothing against Mount. If he starts, he starts. I'm all happy with it. Guys, look, that brings up to the end of this particular show. Aiden, thank you so much for joining, my man. Any final messages before we go?
No, good luck.
Everyone, you've got Aiden's information of social media in the description below. Please follow Aiden. He's honestly a fantastic guy to follow. Someone great to interact with as well. Guys, thank you, each and every one of you guys who have joined in. Please smash that like button. If you're here, take the opportunity to hit that like button right now. And please, if you haven't seen the whole stream, go back, check the whole stream out. It's been a really, really good conversation with Aiden. And if you're here for the first time, subscribe and hit the bell notification to stay in touch with all my content. Until next time, everyone, see you.